Hello, this is Dana and welcome to my channel, The Orchid Hut. Today's video is a one thing you need to know video about preparing natural wood for mounting your orchids. So we're not really talking about the cork bark mounts here because typically you buy pieces of that and it's kind of ready to go and ready to use. But this video is more about using wood maybe from your own yard or possibly driftwood that you collect or purchase. And you do have to give a little bit of consideration to how that wood might need to be prepared so that your orchid can grow on it successfully. So I have some of my Phalaenopsis blooms in the camera range here, just so you can get an idea of how large some of these pieces of wood actually are. Okay, so let's first talk about pieces of wood that you may collect out of your own yard. Now, last fall I had my oak trees trimmed and I set aside some of the manageable pieces that were cut from that tree trimming. And I knew that at some point I would try to turn them into orchid mounts. And you know, if you think about it, when you mount an orchid to one of the trees in your yard, there really is no prep for that. I mean, you don't, do anything to the wood before you put the orchid there. You don't sterilize it, you don't boil it, you don't do any of those kinds of things. So for this case, there would not be really anything that I would do to this wood except figure out how to tie it together to make the mount. You'll notice some lichen growing on this bark, and that's perfectly okay. I think it actually has a symbiotic relationship with the orchid and probably actually keeps some moisture near the roots of the orchid. So I'm not going to be scrubbing that off or picking that off. I would be leaving it just like this. I think it actually adds to the character and the overall pleasing look of the orchid mount. So for something like this, you just want to make sure that it's a hard wood. This was from an oak tree, so then I know the wood is hard and it's not going to deteriorate quickly. Pecan wood would also be good. Now, some of the woods that they don't recommend would be something like pine wood. That tends to be a softer wood and doesn't really work well for an orchid mount that's going to last for any length of time. And, you may even have something like grapevines growing in your yard, and it's a very rough bark, so you might think that that would be good for your orchids, but actually grapevines deteriorate rather quickly. So you just want to make sure that it's a hard wood. Now, one other thing to maybe be a little careful of is if the wood is extra dark, maybe like from a cherry tree or something like that, it may have some extra tannin in it, or it may have something like that where you might want to soak the wood for a few days, and as the water turns brown, change the water out, and you're just drawing out some of the extra tannins from that wood. And then the other thing I think to be careful of is aromatic woods like cedar, because there's a resin in there that orchids are not going to appreciate. So just be careful of aromatic woods, be careful of woods that are too soft, and if the wood is dark, unlike this oak wood, which is rather white, you may want to soak it for a while to get the extra tannins out. Okay, so that's one example. Now, the other example is pieces of weathered driftwood. Now, you can collect this on nature walks or possibly from the beach, as long as it's not against the laws of your community to collect such things. This was actually purchased, and it belonged to a man who had a lifetime collection of different pieces of driftwood. So I don't really know where this came from, although I suspect some of the pieces like this at one point might have been a 2x4, and there might have been 2 nail holes right here. So, you know, this piece may have been used in fencing or some other type of construction project, but now it has really been weathered over time. There's no reason to soak it to get out the extra tannins because that has already been taken care of by time. However, you know, we may still want to sanitize this in a way because we really don't know what the source of it was. And if it was collected from a beach, there may very well be salts embedded in the wood. So there's a couple of ways to take care of that. One of the ways is to just put it in a bucket and pour boiling water over it, and that's probably what I will do with these pieces. And then once the boiled water treatment is finished, you can soak this for about 24 hours in a mild bleach solution, 9 parts water to 1 part bleach. And if you have a bucket large enough, you know, you could get the whole thing in there, or you may have to do half and then flip the wood and do the other half. The other way, if you don't want to do the boiled water method, is to put it in your oven at about 225 degrees for, you know, an hour or two. However, I would not want this in my house oven, and you really, really, really need to be on standby just in case something in there starts to overheat, and you certainly would not want to cause any sort of flammable situation. So I'm not very keen on the oven method, although you will read that you can do that instead of the boiling water. So for these pieces, since I don't know their origin, I will be pouring boiling water over them, and I will be soaking them for about a day in mild bleach solution. Now this is really, really clean. However, if you were to collect this yourself, and you know, maybe it would have some debris stuck to it before the boiling water and before, you know, putting it in the bleach solution, you may want to just scrub it down with a soft brush and some soapy water. Okay, so I love using pieces of natural wood like this for mounting orchids, and I hope that you enjoy doing the same type of thing with some of your orchids and can look for some pieces like this. I will be doing some videos in the future that use the oak limbs out of my own yard for mounting projects. And thanks so much for watching. If you learned something new or enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and the subscribe button will be coming up in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Thanks so much for watching, and talk to you next time.